We both applied to the same company that fall. I went for data analytics. She went for marketing strategy. We practiced interviews together, side by side on the couch. When I got the offer, she smiled too quickly. It looked like something rehearsed. Her phone buzzed that night, and she turned it face down. She said, "Congrats, Ethan, you deserve it." But her voice sounded like she was trying not to choke. A week later, the silence between us became a third person. She stayed late at the gym, even when it closed early. I checked once. She wasn't lying exactly, just hiding something softer than truth. She bought new perfume, sharp and expensive. It lingered in the air like a warning. When I asked if she was okay, she said, "Some people marry safe." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She was. The next morning, she didn't kiss me goodbye. I started covering more bills to keep peace. Car payment, phone plan, groceries. Money fixes nothing, but keeps the noise down. I thought space might heal us. Instead, space became her weapon. Every conversation turned into a contest. She said, "You only got that job because you play nice." I said, "They liked my work." She said, "They liked your flannel." Her resentment had rhythm, practiced and clean. At dinner, she'd scroll through her phone instead of eating. Her screen glowed like a secret she wasn't ready to admit. When I offered to help her reapply, she laughed. "You can't help me. You're on the inside now." I told her I still believed in her, but belief doesn't fix ego. She started talking about connections, networking, image. Things that used to make her roll her eyes. Now they were gospel. I kept hoping it was temporary, that she just needed time to feel seen again. But every time I reached out, she flinched. Every word sounded like a reminder that I had won. At night, she'd fall asleep with her back turned. The silence stretched between us like a rope about to snap. I stayed patient because that's what good men do. They wait. They forgive. They pretend not to see what's coming. One Friday, I came home early. Her gym bag was by the door, untouched. Her car wasn't there. She came home 2 hours later, hair perfect, perfume loud. She said she'd lost track of time. I nodded, because lies are easier to swallow when you already expect the taste. We sat on the couch like strangers in matching clothes. She asked if I was happy. I said yes. She said, "Then one of us is lying." That night, I realized I didn't know who she wanted to be anymore. And worse, I didn't know if she wanted me to be part of it. Sometimes betrayal doesn't start with cheating. It starts with envy. It starts when someone you love stops cheering for you. I tried to hold us together, but the thread was already fraying, and I was the only one still holding it. Family dinners used to feel warm. Now they felt like court hearings. Claire smiled too wide, laughed too hard, poured too much wine. My mother asked how her job search was going. Claire said, "Still waiting for people to see my potential." She glanced at me when she said it, like I was the obstacle. After dinner, I went to refill the ice and heard voices from the den. Claire was talking to my sister-in-law, soft but sharp. "He's fine, but he's not my type. I need someone with drive." The words landed like a crack through glass. I didn't move, didn't breathe. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. I walked back into the kitchen and smiled through the noise. When we drove home, she waited for me to fight. I asked if she had fun. She said, "It was fine." That word cut deeper than an argument. For the next week, I stopped fixing and started observing. She spent more time alone, less time pretending. Her phone was always face down. She stopped telling me about her day. When I mentioned her interview leads, she rolled her eyes. "Don't act like my mentor," she said. I told her I was just trying to help. She said, "You're not helping, you're showing off." It was the kind of bitterness that had been aging quietly for months. At work, everything was calm. At home, everything was theater. She rehearsed monologues in the bathroom mirror. I bring value. I bring relevance. It sounded like she was auditioning for a new life. I started wondering who the audience was. I stopped checking her phone, not because I trusted her, but because I didn't care to chase ghosts. The gym became her second home. The perfume grew stronger, like she wanted to be remembered by smell if not by love. She began to talk about men with presence. I asked what that meant. She said, someone who fills a room. I said, you mean someone who isn't me? She didn't deny it. At work events, coworkers asked why she never visited anymore. I lied and said she was busy. Truth was, she didn't want to stand next to me. She wanted to stand above me. One night, I asked her if she was happy. She said, I should be. Then she turned off the light. I lay awake, realizing should was another kind of no. I started covering her bills again, just to keep the house quiet. But the silence grew louder anyway. She began making jokes about marrying safe. Every time, I laughed less. It was like she wanted to prove she could break something just to see if I'd fix it. When she looked at me now, I wasn't her partner. I was the reminder of where she'd stalled. I told myself I still loved her. Maybe I did. But love without respect is just habit. And habits can die without anyone noticing. That's when I knew something worse than distance had moved in. Contempt had taken her seat at the table. The company hosted a mandatory employee event. Spouses were encouraged to come. Claire insisted on joining, even though she used to hate corporate gatherings. She spent 2 hours getting ready. When she walked out, she looked breathtaking. Confidence replaced warmth. We arrived at the venue filled with string lights and polite laughter. My boss, Daniel Harper, greeted us near the buffet. He shook her hand firmly, smiled, and moved on. No spark, no flirtation, just courtesy. But Claire kept orbiting him the entire night, laughing too loudly at jokes he didn't tell, asking about company strategy like she was part of the board. I watched her from across the room, pretending not to. Her eyes never looked for me once. When the event ended, I went to grab our coats. She wasn't beside me. I found her near the executive offices, phone in hand. She said she needed the restroom. I didn't argue. On the drive home, she hummed to herself like nothing happened. 2 days later, Daniel called me into his office. I thought it was about a report. He looked uneasy, like he wished he didn't have to talk. He said, Ethan, I need to show you something. He turned his monitor toward me. It was security footage from that night. The hallway outside his office, timestamp clear. Claire walked in after the event ended. He was packing his briefcase. She stepped closer, said something we couldn't hear, touched his arm. He stepped back immediately and opened the door. She hesitated, then left. Daniel paused the video and sighed. He said, she messaged me later. It was vague but uncomfortable. He handed me a printed email. Thank you for the great conversation, she had written. I'd love to discuss creative opportunities soon. No kiss emojis, but the tone was clear. He said, I'm not accusing. I just wanted you to know. I like your work and I don't want rumors. The room went silent, except for the hum of the AC. I stared at the screen and felt nothing, like my emotions had clocked out. I thanked him for showing me. He said he'd file a confidential note with HR. I agreed. He asked, do you think she'll try again? I said, if she thinks there's an angle, yes. He nodded slowly, like we were planning a rescue mission instead of cleaning up betrayal. I left the office with the printout in my hand. The hallway lights buzzed above me, steady and judgmental. I sat in my car and stared at the paper until the ink blurred. I wanted to feel anger, but it was just disappointment wearing a new face. When I got home, Claire was on the couch scrolling her phone. She smiled faintly. How was work? She asked. I said, predictable. She laughed. unaware that I'd already seen her definition of ambition. I went to bed early, pretending to sleep while my heart drafted its resignation letter. Daniel and I agreed to keep everything professional. No accusations, no traps, just clarity. We drafted an email together. It invited Claire to a brief consulting discussion at a hotel conference suite. Neutral language, business tone, no flattery. She replied within minutes. "I can make that time," she wrote. 7 words, no hesitation. The next day felt endless. I left work early and met Daniel at the Meridian Hotel. Conference rooms there always smell like carpet cleaner and regret. Daniel set out a few blank folders to look official. We left the door slightly open. He said, "Whatever happens, stay calm." At exactly 5 o'clock, there was a soft knock. The door opened, and the scent hit first. Claire stepped in wearing heels and a silk slip under her coat. Her eyes went straight to Daniel, then froze when she saw me. Her smile broke mid-load. "So where's the champagne?" she asked. Daniel kept his voice even. "This is a professional meeting, as stated in the email." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You two think this is funny." I stayed seated, hands on the table. She turned to me. "Why are you here, Ethan?" I said, "Because I deal with the fallout." She rolled her eyes. "Please, you think this proves anything?" Daniel said, "Your approach after the company event crossed a line. This meeting clarifies boundaries." She crossed her arms. "You know what? Fine, honesty time." Her voice cracked, but her pride didn't. "I wanted to cheat. I'm out of your league, Ethan. I'm tired of pretending I'm not." The words didn't echo, but they landed like steel. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "I overheard you tell my family I wasn't your type. Now you've confirmed it." She glared. "I was building connections. You wouldn't understand ambition." I said, "I was arranging an interview for you quietly. That door closed now." Her face twitched, then reset into arrogance. "As if I need your charity." Daniel spoke calmly. "He believed in your talent. After your behavior, that opportunity no longer exists." She laughed once hollow. "You think anyone cares? Nothing happened." I stood up slowly. "This is over. I'm filing for divorce. No alimony, no drama, just truth." She went pale, then angry. "You wouldn't." "I already did," I said. "I'm done buying peace." She looked at Daniel one last time, hopping for rescue. He said nothing. She turned, yanked the door and walked out. Her perfume stayed behind, thick as smoke. Daniel exhaled. "I hate that it came to this," he said. "So do I answered. We walked down to HR and documented everything. No scandal, no shouting, just signatures and procedure. That night, I slept on the couch. Not from heartbreak, but from relief. The silence finally sounded clean. I filed for divorce the next morning. No speeches, no warnings, just paperwork. The woman at the clerk's office didn't even look surprised. She handed me a form and said, "Sign here." I signed like I was clocking out of a long shift. When I got home, Claire was gone. Her perfume still haunted the hallway. That night, she texted me a screenshot of the papers. "You're pathetic," she wrote. I didn't answer. Ignoring her felt like the first real victory. 2 days later, my mother called. Apparently, Claire had already told her I'd left her, for no reason. I told my mom the truth. I told her about the hotel, the message, the arrogance. She sighed. "Then you did what you had to do." Her parents found out soon after. They called me together, voices tight and shaking. They said, "She admitted what happened. We can't protect her from consequences." I said I didn't want revenge, just peace. They said, "Then take it, son, she'll learn." A week later, Claire showed up at my door. She looked flawless, desperate, and rehearsed. "I lost my head," she said. "I can fix this." I said, "Through my attorney." My friend Mark was sitting on the couch building an IKEA table. He didn't even look up. Claire stepped closer. You loved me once. I did, I said. But I don't love this version of you. She frowned. My parents disowned me. You're all I have left. I shook my head. They set boundaries, so do I. Mark chuckled quietly. If you're out of his league, why are you back here? She shot him a glare. Stay out of this. He said, my man's house, my rules. I handed her an envelope. Inside were 2 appointment times to pick up her things. No drama, no surprises. She looked at the paper like it was a death sentence. You're enjoying this, she said. I enjoy closure, I replied. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I didn't flinch. I sat down beside Mark. He said, you good? I said, finally. That night, I opened a new bank account. Closed the joint one. Changed passwords. Canceled the car payment I'd been covering. I made lists of what was mine and what wasn't. 6 plates. 3 forks. 1 couch she hated, but wanted out of spite. I kept it. Her lawyer sent long emails about fairness. I responded with signatures and silence. When it was over, she sent one last message. 5 paragraphs of blame, disguised as apology. I read it twice. Then deleted it. No anger. Just empty relief. Divorce isn't a storm. It's the quiet after you stop, pretending the thunder will pass. For the first time in months, the air felt breathable again. And I realized peace doesn't roar. It whispers. The divorce finalized just after the new year. No appeals, no alimony, no more signatures to chase. The judge said, clean break. It sounded like mercy. I moved into a smaller apartment with better light. No shared memories, no ghosts. I changed the locks and left the past outside. At work, Daniel nodded when he passed me in the hallway. We never talked about the hotel again. Once was enough. I focused on the boring parts that keep life stable. Spreadsheets, coffee, and quiet. Without chaos, I worked faster, sharper, lighter. Daniel noticed. He gave me new projects, more trust, less supervision. I didn't celebrate, but I slept better. Claire's number stayed blocked, but she found other ways. New email addresses. Random numbers. Each message softer than the last. I miss who we were. I've changed. I just need help. I didn't reply to any of them. Some things don't deserve closure. A few months later, she showed up at my lobby. Worn-out hoodie, tired eyes, a folder of overdue bills. She said, please, Ethan, just 3 minutes. I nodded toward the camera above us. 3 minutes, that's all. She spread the papers like they were proof of pain. I messed up, she said. I can fix it. I said, that's a you problem. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. The security guard shifted in his seat, ready if needed. She whispered, you don't even hate me. I said, no, hate takes energy. Her mouth trembled, but no tears came. I slid the folder back to her. Take this, leave the rest. She left without another word. The doors closed behind her with a soft click. The silence felt earned. After that day, the messages stopped for good. Work grew steady again. The noise in my head finally shut off. Then one afternoon, I met Emily from QA. She smiled like it was a natural reflex, not a tactic. We started having lunch breaks that turned into long talks. She asked questions and waited for answers. No performance, no pretense. She laughed at things that weren't even funny because she meant it. We took walks after work. Sometimes said nothing. Sometimes said everything. She never asked about Claire. She didn't need to. Her presence said enough. Peace doesn't need stories. It just needs space. Weekends became simple again. Laundry, breakfast, gym, quiet. No tension, no perfume, no scripts. I learned that calm isn't boring. It's healing. One evening, Emily fell asleep on my couch mid-movie. Her hair smelled like coffee and honesty. I turned down the volume and realized the quiet didn't scare me anymore. It comforted me. I looked around the room that used to feel empty. Now it felt balanced. Not a happy ending, just a steady one. And sometimes, that's the best kind. One afternoon, Claire appeared again in the lobby. No makeup, no confidence, just exhaustion. She carried a single folder and a trembling apology. "I'm getting help," she said. "I've changed." I looked at her, then at the camera above us. "I'm glad," I said. "But this chapter is closed." She tried to smile, but it broke halfway. I stepped back as she reached out. The guard stood quietly by the door. She whispered, "You really don't want to try again." I said, "I don't reinstall old systems." Her eyes filled but never spilled. She gathered her papers, nodded once and walked away. The glass doors shut behind her, sealing the past for good. I went upstairs, sat at my desk and opened my laptop. Typed an email to myself. Date, time, witness. That's how peace is built. Documented, calm, and final. No anger, no revenge, just boundaries that hold. I poured coffee, looked out at the city and breathed. The air felt lighter. For the first time, I realized closure isn't noise. It's the sound of nothing left to fix. And that silence, finally, belonged to me.